All right, let's look at other matters now. According to data from Gartner, a research and advisory firm, the global cloud computing market is expected to reach a staggering $591.8 billion in 2023, up from $490.3 billion in 2022. A forecast to grow an impressive 20.7%, surpassing the 18.8% growth forecast for 2022. Let's get a sense of how Africa and Nigeria is positioning in this market. Joining us now for this conversation is Adora Wodo, founder of Nexuscale and a senior software engineer, joining me right here in the studio. Great to have you. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
So quite interesting, the growth we're seeing in the cloud computing market at this time. Talk to me about how Africa and Nigeria is playing into this market.
We're not where I would like us to be, if I'm being very honest, because I have lofty dreams and goals, and I see that we can be well positioned in the market. But I also understand that beyond the dreams that you have and beyond what you actually want, there is reality and the current state of things, the current state of the economy, the current state of the infrastructure that we have, and that obviously plays into what we can do. But when you see ADC, that's like African Data Center, and you see companies like Main One as well, trying to also position themselves to be those data center powerhouses in the region, it does a lot. Obviously, in other parts of the world, I'm going to use in America, for example, you have the Azures and the AWS, and you have the Googles and IBMs and Oracles, and there's so many. I can go on, and even the smaller ones, well, not so small, but the other ones like DigitalOcean, for example. There are not so many of that here, but like you said, there's the potential for the market to grow, and there's also potential for people to come in and do a lot. So I will say that we should just watch out for this space and see how everything goes, but I believe that there is promise and so much possibility in how it can grow.
We need promise and possibility, at this time, looking at our unemployment rate, before the methodology was revised, we're about over 30%, but now we're down to about, 5% because of that methodology revision. But how much of employment is this providing to Nigerians at this time?
There are different things, and it's like how I say these things. It's like when you create a new solution to solve a particular problem, what is ironic and also kind of good is that you create more problems in the process. And what this means is that you create more opportunities. So now that you are seeing everyone moving to the cloud, and the cloud is basically being able to rent computing to people. Think about how you rent power or water, for example. You outsource it. All you need to know is when I turn on my tap, I want water to flow. I don't care. I'm paying water bill. That's all I care about, right? In that same scenario, it's like I'm paying for computing power, I'm paying for storage somewhere in the cloud that I don't know. It's basically just, like a collection of computers, data centers in a region that you don't know. But it's called the cloud because nobody really knows, or, well, people know, but nobody wants to sit down and think about where these things are, right? But the point is when you create the cloud and you create the opportunity for people to rent these computing systems, you start to introduce new problems as well, like, okay, how do we manage these systems? How do we hire people to build services on top of these systems so that businesses that use our platforms can innovate with our services? How do we make these systems more secure? How do we create support for these systems? So if people have issues, they can reach out and we can answer them. How do we always make sure that our data centers are up? How do we always make sure that the services running on our own cloud systems that, the companies that are using us are using stay available and reliable? So there are so many things that you have to think about.
Looks like a lot of work.
It's a lot of work, and obviously there are a lot of opportunities and a lot of people you are going to hire to make sure that these things stay up and running. This is me talking from the cloud provider's perspective. But when you think about the business people that now don't have to use on-premise servers anymore, don't have to manage their physical servers, because I can only focus on the business solution I'm trying to create, and I can leverage the cloud to deploy and share that solution across the world. When you are talking about those kinds of people, you now start to look at the opportunity for them to focus on what's important, for them to save money and not, have to hire different kinds of people that they don't necessarily, or that they are not meant to need at the early stages of their business. So it helps them, cut cost, essentially, if you think about it that way.
Why we saw during COVID, a lot of people were, or after COVID, people were let go from a couple of tech jobs. Well, that actually happened. But talk to me about salary expectations. Now, looking at that value chain when it comes to cloud computing, how attractive is it?
I think it's pretty attractive, and the way, with everything that is currently happening, when you think of like the current state of the industry, there are three things that people would mention, right? You'd hear people mention data. When you hear data, you're talking about, the data engineering space, which also sort of comprises of the AI/ML space as well. You hear people mention security, and you'd hear people mention the cloud. Those three things stay constant, because regardless of everything happening in the industry, the internet is booming at the moment. Everything and everyone is on the cloud in obviously, different ways. When we start going technical and talking about cloud service models, people are building SaaS-based companies or SaaS-based products. People are building like infrastructure as a service. People are building platforms. People are building other platforms on top of those platforms. So it's like a whole thing, right? And people are building other things like databases as a service, networking as like different kinds of things, right? Obviously, so what this tells you is that the more services people build and deploy, the more dependent a lot of companies are on cloud computing. And that's not going anywhere anytime soon. Right now, a lot of people are talking about artificial intelligence, and it's becoming a big deal. I've gone for many conferences this year,
it's all about
at
AI.
Home and abroad, and everyone is talking about AI. Right? And if you're talking about AI, that's great. When I was in the university, I did a couple of things with AI, and I trained a few AI models on my local computer. But that's for me and myself on my local computer. If you are going to do things to scale, you are going to train these models somewhere. And obviously, the cloud is going to power a bunch of all these AI models and a bunch of all the data that people need to train these AI models. So, because AI is as relevant as it is, unfortunately, and fortunately for me, the cloud isn't going anywhere. And because the cloud isn't going anywhere as well, security has now become a lot more important than people thought it was in the past, because now everything is on the cloud, and if you're not careful and if you're not compliant and you don't do things the right way, apart from it's being easy for attackers to get to you and get to your business, you can also have like compliance or regulatory issues. You could get sued or fined just because you didn't do something right. So yeah, that's what I'll say.
So much to unpack there. Definitely we've run out of time at this time, but we'll definitely revisit the conversation, going forward. Thank you for coming on, Adora Nwodo, founder Nexus Scale. It was great having your perspective today.
Thank you.